Hello, welcome to Dimp Digital's review of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You got me in hosting duties once again due to huge demand, Tom Adcock, and I'm joined once again by Joseph Appleyard. How you doing, Joe?
Good, thanks, you.
Pretty good, thanks. Yeah, recording this on a Thursday, so one day left of work. Nice, good.
Yep, they love it.
Right, good. So, I understand that you've annoyingly to me, being a big fan, played and now completed Breath of the Wild.
Completed is a strong word. I got to the end credits, but one thing I will say about Breath of the Wild off the bat is that it's ginormous. It is a huge undertaking if you wanted to do everything.
Okay,
As a
so
testament
so
to how sort of well filled, I guess, the world is. But yeah, it is a mammoth game.
okay, so first question then. So just the world itself. I know it's different, but
Mhm.
how does it stack up against the kind of, the top three or four open world games? You know, like your Skyrims, your Fallouts. I don't know, Witcher
Yeah,
3.
it feels the world and the environment feel alive, and they have an impact on how you, the player, can play and how Link in the game reacts. So, for example, if you were to wander around in a cold area or up in the mountains where it's colder, you would need to make sure you have some warm clothes on you or a recipe which has some sort of spice in it, for example, that will keep Link warm during that time. If you don't, you'll start losing health.
Okay,
Another example, and this happens in different temperatures. Obviously, there's obviously hot areas and whatnot. If you get wet, that makes you colder. So if you have a little swim in the water and then get out, it's going to make you cold. If you do that, up in the mountains, you're going to be very cold. Um, the rain, for example, if it starts raining in the world, one of the best mechanics and one of the most liberating mechanics of Breath of the Wild is being able to climb up any surface. Other than certain surfaces within like a dungeon or a shrine, because they don't want you to, because you have to get over the puzzle. But you can climb up and go anywhere. Now, if it rains, you slip, so you can't easily get to areas that you probably could normally. So it has a real impact on how you have to approach each situation. Even things like thunder. If it starts thunder and lightning, if you've got a metal sword out, it will conduct the electricity, and when it strikes, it's likely to hit you. So the attention to detail is phenomenal here. I mean, there's loads of other examples I could reel off. Wind, that as a factor. I remember I grabbed 5 apples and I was going to put them by a fire to cook them, because you can cook meals in this and cook food. If you cook them, you get more hearts back. So the idea is to get the raw ingredients, then put them together and make something. I chucked them down next to a fire. A gust of wind blew and blew them all the way down the mountain. I lost them. And it's just these little little moments. So in terms of an open world, it looks barren, and for most parts it is. But the environment and how the world actually treats you as a player is something that's very very good and very pleasing to play through.
okay, so it's all those things. They're fun. It's not it's not work essentially.
No, I mean it's a lot more, and this might catch people off guard a little bit. There's a lot more survival elements in here than you'd find in a Zelda game. Like I mentioned, with
Yeah.
you don't have to manage it too much, like being cold and whatnot, but just be aware that it's there. So if you are going to go to certain places, make sure you've stocked up. You're prepared for what the temperature might be. It might start raining and make it colder, that sort of thing. So there's a lot more focus on that, but they balance it nicely. It's not an aggravation.
Okay. So I've played I think pretty much all of the Zeldas and beat the vast majority of them.
Yes.
And they've got a very tried and tested formula that, to be fair, has probably been getting a little bit stale in the last few games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've already got a good understanding. I really knew nothing before speaking to you about this game. I've tried to stay away as much as possible.
Sure.
So it sounds like the environment itself is like one giant, like,
Yeah.
sandbox, like
Yeah.
puzzle. It's almost like something to battle against.
Yeah.
How is the actual game structured? You said shrines and temples. So
hmm
are there temples in the traditional format?
Yeah. So the way the game's structured, you wake up from 100 year slumber. You don't know what's gone on.
Yep.
You meet an NPC. They give you the kind of lay of the land in a very brief manner. Um, and then you're tasked to go off and complete your set objective however you want. So you're given the main quest is very, it's clear and concise, straight to the point. This is your end goal. You can go and do that now if you want, or you can go and do the 4 dungeons. There's four dungeons in this game, and some people say they're not dungeons, and I'll go into why they might not say that. But there's four what I would call a dungeon to do.
Okay.
You can do them in any order. You don't typically require any kind of special item like you would have done previously to get in. You can wander up and do a side mission, and then I'll open it up. And then by doing that, you're obviously completing the dungeons. You will get benefits for doing that. But you could, in theory, just not bother with them and go straight to the main boss if you were good enough. And
Okay.
so it really just lets you off the hook to do it. Now, the 4 dungeons, like I mentioned, are there. There's also what are known as shrines, and
Okay.
these are really small, bite-sized, I would say, dungeons. So it's typically a puzzle that you have to solve, and then there'll be advancements of that similar puzzle that go up and get a little bit harder. So they can take around 10 to 15 minutes, depending on your skill level and how quickly you filled out. Now, there are over 100 of these shrines, so you kind of get a lot of your puzzle solving feel from those.
Okay.
Um, by doing the shrines, you are rewarded with a token that you can get 4 of those. You can trade them in and get an extra heart to go on your health, or build your stamina wheel so you can sprint longer, so you can swing heavy attacks longer, so you can climb up walls for longer. And that's how it's structured. It really does just let you off the hook to go and do it as you please. And it's very tough. It doesn't kind of protect you from going to a place that you shouldn't do. If you walk to a place that has high level enemies, they will kick your ass. I remember I played through Ocarina of Time on the 3DS, your
Yeah.
version
Yeah.
of it, and I probably died sub a dozen times, maybe on a few
Yeah.
bosses a little bit extra. I must have died over 100 times in Breath of the Wild. It's very, very tough. It's a big
Okay.
shake up to those that are kind of expecting just to sort of go through a nice, tight, sort of structured world. It is not that at all. You make this game, yourself essentially in what you're going off to go and do.
Does it still feel like a Zelda game, or is it that much of a departure that it now is it's entirely its own beast?
It's still got. I feel like it still feels like a Zelda game. Just that it's just a different structure. Like the combat is still that Z targeting or Z targeting that they've been using since Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
So the dungeons are there, the shrines are there offering additional pieces, but it's still kind of on its own level when it comes to puzzle solving, and allowing you to giving you flexibility to overcome situations, on your own scale. Like you can do things 5 different ways typically. You can approach a situation. So I feel like it will shake up the formula. It probably needed a shake up. Some people would maybe disagree with that, but I felt like it certainly did. And this
No,
was
no, I
the
agree.
natural kind of step for it. Um, but it comes with issues. There are certain issues with the direction of going down a survival element. Although is very very good in one way, there's certain elements of it they get a little bit wrong. So one, for example, is your weapons, your bow and your swords and your spears. Tons of variety of weapons. Really take my
Yeah.
hat off to them. There's loads of different types of weapons and loads of different kind of subtypes of those weapons. However, they all have like a durability kind of number on them. You can only hit the enemies X amount of times of them, and then they break
Okay.
and they're gone forever. You cannot repair weapons. So in a way, I don't mind that. I prefer it when I find a weapon that I really like. I think I don't want to lose this weapon, but
Yeah.
I can then blunt it so it's useless, but then go to a repair station, for example.
Sure. You find your favorite 2 or 3 weapons and
Yeah,
you
that's it.
stick with those. Yeah.
Can't
Okay.
can't do that here. So you're kind of left to make sure that you're constantly scrounging weapons. But towards the latter part of the game, I was actually reluctant to engage in combat because I didn't want to lose 2 or 3 weapons in a big battle and have to fight. I felt like I was punished.
Right.
Typically with an RPG, which is like that's a very RPG like way of doing things. You are either rewarded quite handsomely each time, or your character levels up. And there's no
Yeah.
leveling. There's no leveling in this. There's no real reason to go out and just kill things for no reason. And that for me was one of the biggest gripes I had with it, particularly as the game wears on, where you think, well, I could go and kill those enemies there. I know I'm going to pick up X amount of resource, but I've now got 200 of that resource. Why would I bother blunting down my weapon? I need to save that for when I'm going to need it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mm.
Okay. Right. Well, another thing then. I guess I don't know whether to ask you for full grading now. No, I'll ask this question.
Yeah.
So, how many hours have you put into this actually?
The tracker on the Switch isn't the best, but it said over 60 hours.
And do you know what the split would be between on screen and like portable?
I would say I've done about 20 hours portable, and then the rest was probably on the telly whilst I was at home. So it plays great. It plays great in handheld. That's probably the preferred mode actually because there's a couple of frame rate issues with it on the telly. If you go into a forest, it chugs back quite
Right.
badly. But yeah, it plays equally good in both modes. I wouldn't be, not equally as good. I'd say it plays better on the handheld, which is the area I was most kind of concerned about. But um, didn't want to leave it on a negative actually on talking about the durability, but um, it's just
I'm assuming though, from what you're saying, that's like the one negative out of a sea of positives.
yeah, I liked the new direction. I liked the shrines. I like the dungeons, um, but the dungeons aren't Zelda typical dungeons.
Oh yeah, you're
So
going to go into this. Yeah, quickly. Yeah,
yes,
let us know.
so it's I don't want. So for example, this is one way to tell you the story. I did one dungeon in about 35 minutes. So
Okay.
I breezed through it with little or no resistance. And I just remember playing dungeons of previous Zelda games and then being like the pinnacle of the toughness of that game.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
well, they are, aren't they? That's
yeah,
where all your like puzzling and like fighting comes together. That's yeah,
I think
the whole
because they've
point.
given you that off the leash style of game, they can't do that with it.
No.
They've had to set the four dungeons as X standard because you might just wander in there and be able to do it. And the reason why I say that is because at the very beginning they give you pretty much all the tools that you're going to need. So
Right.
you get like powers like you get like a magnetic power you can pick things up that are magnetic. You get like a stasis power you can stop things. If there's water you can build like an ice block to get it. And you're given that pretty much out of the gate. It's not long before
Okay.
you get all that. So you're then left to hone your skills and figure out what you can and can't do with them in the world. So I think some people, like the Zelda purists, will have a big problem with some parts of this game. But I personally quite liked this shift. Um,
Yeah, I'm very interested to play it and see what I think of it. So I was all for a shake up in Zelda, but
hmm,
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be too RPG heavy for me. But I mean,
I don't think it will. I honestly don't
no.
think it will. If so it's at its best when you're exploring. This is like Skyrim levels of wandering off in the world, going where you want, and there's always something new to find. That's what they've done really, really well. You're not dissatisfied at going off the beaten path and just checking out that little thing that looks like a cave or looks like a wall you could perhaps blow up. Because when you get in there, there's going to be something special for there. And the way they structure the objectives typically is quite ambiguous. So it won't,
Okay.
it's not like I don't know, like a game like I love Horizon Zero Dawn, but it's very much like go to this checkpoint, kill these people,
Of course, yeah.
and you just do that for the whole game. Fine. This is not like that. It's got riddles in there, it's got puzzles in there, it's got areas where they will describe an area, and it's up to you to go and find out where that area is. And I really just thought that was that's where it's at its best when you're off just exploring and playing this as a new version of Zelda, not trying to get through the dungeons and get to the end. It's take your time with it, soak it up, and you'll have a great time.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, the few reviews I've read, they've mentioned things like, all the little like magic moments you have where you figure, a crazy way of doing something
Yeah,
or using the physics to your advantage or whatever. I mean,
yeah.
have you got any examples of times like that you had or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's tons of times like that. I mean, a lot of the the side quests you do require a form of outside of the box thinking of how to get something. The shrines, I completed some of those shrines. I'm pretty sure there was a much easier way for me to do it, but in my head, I could only figure out this one
Right.
specific way of doing it. and it took longer because it took impeccable timing. But when I finally got it, I felt satisfied. I'm sure there was an easier way of doing it. But that's the great thing about this game. It does what all open worlds, if you're going to do that, should strive to, and if you're going to be based on exploration and survival, is to give you those dynamic moments that are kind of unique to your playthrough. And I think that's where the Breath of the Wild shines.
Okay, I've got one last question before wrapping it up. Just around the graphics and the art style, because they kind of went for a kind of combo between Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, I guess
Yeah.
you'd say, princesses. So, did you like it? What
Yeah, I
did you
loved
think of
it.
this?
I'm not all for like, gritty realism. I mean, Uncharted 4 looks great, but it's nice to have a game that looks like a game and
Yeah,
plays towards the strengths of said art style.
yeah.
Like I said, the changing, world and the changing weather, sun, rain, storms. It looks beautiful. I think they've played to their strengths here, and I've got absolutely no problem with how it looked. I actually think that was a positive for me.
Nice. Okay, well, going to push you then.
Yep.
So, is Zelda Breath of the Wild a buy it or a bin it?
Fucking buy it.
Nice. And official grading.
I'm going to go for a gold. Um, I think it's a terrific game in its own right. It's got some problems,
Yeah.
and there's a few little issues there they could have done with perhaps changing the way they worked, but you can excuse all those because you go off and lose 60 hours roaring around Hyrule finding amazing secrets. So well worth a purchase for those people out there. But it's not going to drop price much because it's a Nintendo game, so you're going to have to pay.
Nice.
You're going to have to commit to
Dreadful
paying
that.
full whack to it.
Okay, and then just before we go, I just wanted to say to you, are you interested in the DLC that's
Yeah, I've
been announced?
purchased it. So I purchased this the day I got the game, so I was kind of in that
Okay.
that mode. But they added some cool stuff in the last one. They've added a load of new side quests, which I've not gone to go and do yet. But they've added this thing called the Hero's Path, which shows you a kind of you go on the map and you press the button. It shows you your path through the whole of the map, and you can see where you've been and where you haven't been. So yeah, I've got it. I don't know how much I will play until the second big one arrives, hopefully later this year.
Okay.
I'm kind of waiting for that and then going back to give it in one go. But I think that the Zelda team can be trusted on this, and it's something I'm looking forward to getting back into once I've had a little rest of it.
Yeah, sounds great. And then my very, very last point, what do you think's in store for the future of Zelda? Is it open world all the way now, or can you see them going
Um,
in and out of like more traditional Zeldas with something like this, or
to be honest, I
back to
wouldn't.
the...
I quite like the idea of them swapping around. Perhaps getting a slightly different team with a different set of goals to go and do like the more tighter versions of it. And then have another team working on the open world versions. I think they'll stick to this though. I think they'll look at this. And to be honest, this map and this world they've given you, it's got so many surprises and stuff to do. You could probably get away with just building Breath of the Wild as paid DLC installments, new
Yeah.
dungeons, new little mini stories. There's so many places to go, so much areas they could use, and I think they could even do that if they wanted to. I'd be more than happy with that.
Yeah, you could definitely. I mean, it took them so long to get this out that you could
Yeah,
see them maybe
exactly.
reusing assets and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, not changing too much. Okay, well, thank you very, very much for that review, Joe.
No worries. Thanks, mate.
Right, take care. See you later.
Ta-da.
Bye bye.